Hey everybody, you're very welcome to In Forest and Lands. I'm Joe Price, Wilderness Skills Instructor and Product Developer, and standing behind the camera, hoping she doesn't get sliced up today in this video, is Ida Olsen.
Hello everyone.
And this video today is on saws. Full disclaimer aside, I do work very closely with Silky and so does Ida, but I am not paid for my opinions and I am not paid to promote their products. I am just here to show you saws and give you advice on saws, saw techniques, how to use them, how to cut bone with them, how to cut sticks with them, and everything else that comes in between. That is what this video is. You can tell me what you like about Silky, what you don't like, but you can also just use whatever saw you wish to use in the woods. That is the whole point of this video and today's lesson. So in this video, I'm going to cover saws, what they're used for, saw basics. I'm going to show you 2 to 3 saw cuts, 2 to 3 arborist style cuts, and of course, we're going to be cutting some bone and having some fun along the way. So first things first, out the gate, you're going to head out into the woods with a saw. You want to have yourself some gloves. Now, I can understand that this is a bit of a kind of a controversial topic, but if you're only starting out in the woods, having gloves is what you want to have for when you're working with saws. You're going to make mistakes. Plus, I personally am a bit of an old hat. I used to work on power lines. I've worked around saws an awful lot, and I've cut down trees, and saws will bite you. It's just a matter of time, and they always will. So when we're out in the woods, we don't want to get into danger. Gloves are fine. In fact, you can see that I have several scars on my hands. This in of itself is from a bow saw slip that happened to me when I was in the woods, and that was bad days, bad times. So a set of gloves, and then following on from that, a good first aid kit. Now, I'm not talking your first aid kit with some Lemsips and ibuprofen in it and a few plasters. You want a first aid kit that's set up for the tools that you're using. So basically anything to stop bleeding and put yourself back together. This first aid kit is set up for me, who I work with knives on the daily basis in my other job with heli. And then I also work a lot outdoors with saws. So I have this set up for those type of wounds. That is where you want to start. Now, where we don't want to start is with this. This is not good. Like I said, you know, you get what you pay for. When it comes to this, this is from a generic German retail store that sells stuff in its middle aisle and food. Now, it's not that it won't cut. I mean, it has all the things that it wants to do. But as you can see, the locking mechanism is pretty faulty on it. It's not strong at all. And the handle is already starting to crack. And you don't want to deal with things like that. It's kind of worth paying a little bit extra to make sure that your tools are going to be safe. That is my main critique of the lower end entry level bought from like a food store, grocery store type saws, is that eventually this locking mechanism is going to fail. When it fails, it's going to hurt you, and then you're going to need your bits and bobs that are there. But if this is all you can afford, please make sure to use gloves and a first aid kit when you use it. Things to watch out for. Now, you decide to go out and you're going to get yourself a saw. This is a pocket boy that was given to me by Silky. There is a larger version in the Outback, but we'll just work with this because it's a good generic size. This is a pruning saw. This is great if you fancy going out into your garden and so on and so forth and doing some small decorative bonsai gardening, but it's also brilliant if you're getting into craft projects. Having a saw this size is a very compact, very neat, and again, it's not going to cause so much damage if it goes a bit rogue, but if you plan on going out making spoons, baskets, a little bit of fire gathering material, this is a beautiful size. When it comes to saws, it's the same as when you want to batten with knives. I always recommend that you never cut anything more than half of the blade's diameter. This goes for the bigger saws too. It just means that you're in the safe working range of the saw. You try and cut a branch this size, and what is going to happen is that the saw will travel, either stay in the cut or will travel out of it or get stuck in the cut. Whereas if you only cut to half the size of the blade, you're able to see the saw travel in and out, and you're not going to risk breaking the tip of your saw. So half the size is a good way to kind of look at it. But this is what I would use for crafting projects, or if I'm just going for maybe a day hike in the woods and I might want to prepare some kindling for a fire. Next is kind of your mid-size one. This is the bushcrafter's favorite. Most bushcrafting tools tend to fall within crafting and heavy use. And this would be the Gone Boy. It's about the same size as the Backo Laplander, but a little bit bigger. But it has those things on it that I enjoy. It's got the full grip, it's super light, the blade is really easy to change. I have made a video recently, we'll drop a link down below, of changing your silky saw blades for those who would be interested in how that happens. But as you can see now, all of a sudden I'm coming half the blade length and I'm up to stuff that's about forearm or bicep thick, depending on who you are. If you're Hulk Hogan with his 55-inch guns, but this is about where you want to be in this range, and this will do you for your craft projects, your firewood. We're not into shelter building. It will do it at a push, but you're kind of heading out of the realms where you want to be. But this will do everything you need to do as an average woodcraft, bushcraft kind of saw. It also comes with that 90-degree spine that I like, but that's about where you're working with that size of saw. And next is the one that you see me carry often enough when I'm out and about. This is the larger one, and as you can see now, I'm into cutting big rounds. This would be more for shelter building, for especially in the winter time when myself and Anita are out here an awful lot over the winter. We need a lot of firewood, and we need an awful lot of large firewood. So this is where this would come into play. It may be a little overkill for the average person that's in the woods. This is what I carry in the woods most of the time, because I choose not to carry an axe, and then I carry it in the winter time with my axe for when I have to buck or chop down larger pieces of firewood. This will get you away with it, but I really want to stress this. This is Ida's one. She likes to keep it fairly solid and fairly tight. That this can do what this does, but then you're going to push this saw into the area where you risk breaking it. And you don't want to break your tools, especially in bad situations. So if you constantly find that you're pushing this saw to its very limits, maybe it's worth upgrading to this. Or if you want to stop carrying an axe and start building shelters, you're kind of looking for the more robust things like this. Also in the Outback series, which is like you see here, it can cut bone. And so when I'm out in the woods, sometimes I like to take home bone for projects, or I'm out hunting, I might have a carcass that I need to go through, and having something like this, they just help with a few bones around the camp, and then be able to still cut wood on the tail end of it is absolutely fantastic. And next is the ubiquitous bow saw. This is from Agua Canyon. I don't normally use bow saws. I find that maybe it's because it's the only time I've ever really damaged myself is with one of these, and they do require a different technique to cutting. But folding saws do have a limitation as well, and that's where bow saws step in. Now with bow saws, that you can cut almost the full length of the blade, but the only way you can cut is inside here. Not how big this is, but this large Agua Canyon can only cut wood that's half or 3/4 of the size of this frame here, because you're moving within the frame. It also requires a special technique to start, and can be a bit aggressive when you want to go out, and naturally the pack weight, and it's kind of a saw is a saw. But where these shine is on things like canoe trips, when you want to just process fast wood for your fire over and over again. They can put 2 blades in them, so you have one green wood blade and you have one dead wood blade, a rancher blade, or sometimes as it's known as. Set up differently with the teeth, not going to get into that, it's been done 1,000 times over, but this allows you to process wood fast, and it also allows you to process wood safely that may be too small for the other saws. So that is the saws and what they do and how you would carry them. But I don't want to focus on the brand so much, I just want to focus on the size, on what to buy for what you need and what not to buy for when you're out in the woods. So now we're going to dive straight into it, and I want to show you a basic cut that you can do in the woods for when you're out and about. So when it comes to using the bow saw, there is kind of one kind of universally accepted technique, and whatever technique you want to use is up to you. But when it comes to using bow saws, you want to find the place that you want to start your cut. You place your bow saw on the cut. You want to make sure you're on a nice secure surface. Not always ideal. You're not always going to find an ideal surface in the wood, but try your best to do what you do. You want to take the hand that's not holding the saw, pass it through the frame, grab this side. You can brace this with your knee, and you're only starting the cut. This is a push-pull saw, so you can see how small I'm starting off. I'm not trying to pull the entire saw back and forth. I'm just starting off nice and small, with very little pressure. So the saw can get down below the teeth, and that's important. The saw is not set until the teeth are now in the kerf or the cut. Then I can stay in this position if I wish and continue to cut. And the whole reason for this is because bow saw blades are pretty big and there's a lot of flex, and that is exactly where this scar came from here. That I was holding it like this. It was a rainy day, I wasn't paying attention. The saw came out of the cut and it went straight across my hand. So this is a technique I'm very strict about when I'm at classes and with students in the woods. Stay safe, protect your hands, and carry on, and you can cut away like so. And get what you need to get done. But there is a better way and a more biomechanical way to go through wood faster if you're just processing wood for the fire, and it is the advantage to having a bow saw over a folding saw. So the method I like to use at camp when I'm using a bow saw, and this is when I carry a bow saw with me, for when I need to process wood fast. We're not talking shelter building, we're not talking precise cuts, but this is a Scandinavian method of using a bow saw, where you want to place it down on the ground like so, with the edge facing away from you. This is great if you're in wet ground or you're dealing with snow and you don't want to kneel down. You get yourself a stick, you place it through the cross member with the teeth facing away from you. You secure yourself over it like so, and you work your way towards it, pinching it between your legs. And you got all your weight sitting on it. Then you take it up, and this allows you to get so much pressure on the saw So there you go, a great way to be body mechanics and a safe technique for when you're using a saw in the woods. Now, folding saws don't work like bow saws. If you notice, naturally, there is no frame to this. So when you go to use it, you have to kind of stable yourself up with your working platform, and then you would use your thumb just to kind of set where it needs to be and move along. Silky saws are pull saws. You can see the teeth only move in one direction, so they only cut in one way, but you start your cut off the same way. You get yourself nice and stable with your thumb, you short stroke it till the teeth are set, then you can step offside and move it. But as you can see, this can be really difficult if you want to just cut smaller pieces of wood, or you want to plow on and use firewood, or maybe you happen to be in inclement weather, snow, and you don't have stumps around the place. So here's the biomechanical cheat known as the plumber's vice. And when it comes to the plumber's vice, I see an awful lot of videos out there where people just say, this is how you do it. And it's a bit kind of backwards and forwards, rubbing your belly. And what people do often forget is that the camera is reversed. So it can be a bit hard for beginners out there to kind of figure it out. But I'm going to show you now how to do it and figure it out in the woods for yourself. You have a dominant hand, and that is the hand that you're going to use the saw in. So you match your dominant hand up with the leg to match it there. So this is my right hand and this is my right leg. I then take my right leg and I step over the piece of wood, and then what we're going to do is lock it in behind our leg. You come down and it is locked in. Might be a bit pinchy, make sure it's delimbed, and now we can sit back on our honkers. This now allows me to be outside my blood triangle, brace it with this left hand, the non-dominant hand that I'm working with, and saw away. Naturally, if you're trying to process something big like 5 to 6 inch rounds for a shelter, this is not the way to do it. But for most people out in the woods, cutting firewood or lopping stuff off for projects, this is a great way to level yourself off on the ground, cut larger pieces of firewood without having to find the perfect spaces, and then just saw away through. Known as the plumber's vice is because that's how plumbers cut these large sections of pipe when they're on construction sites. A great way to level yourself up with your folding saws. So now we're back in the pocket boy size range, but this will work with any size saw. It's just to show you that the crafting abilities of it. Maybe you only have your pocket knife on you and you want to knock a quick square notch into this, or maybe an L7 notch if you want, and there's a quick way to do that. I often see people making mistakes with this, and you can run the risk of damaging your saw, but it is a quick way to do it. And what you got to remember is fine dining. For those that don't know what the definition of fine dining is everything needs to be between 1mm and 3mm. That's it. And when I see people do these cuts, I see them leave large chunks in the wood. That is great if you're working with dead spruce or you're working with dead pine, But if you're working with tougher woods and green woods, you need it to be within the 1 and 3 mil fine dining range. So we are going to create a cut, the depth we want our notch. We are then going to move 3 mil, thereabouts, to the side. We are then going to go 3 mil again, and we repeat this process to the edge of it. And trust me, I understand wanting to create these bigger gaps to get to where you need to get with your square notch faster, but we're in the woods. There's no time, and it's going to cost us more time if we got to go buy a new blade. Then, not using the tip, using the base of the saw, we are just going to pop those bits out. There we go. And then you can, if you still don't want to use your knife, come across the cut and finish it off. And you can make yourself a rudimentary square notch really quick. But what happens if we want this to be a saddle notch? Well, or an L7 notch. You basically do the exact same thing, or fine dining cuts, but you start this one off at one depth, and then you continue creating slightly deeper notches with your deepest being in the middle, and then you continue to come out and get shallow and shallower. So we have shallow, mid, deep, mid, shallow. And then you do the same. You pop your bits off. Again, the rear of the saw, making sure to protect our teeth. And then you clean that up with your cross cuts. And it is not beautiful. It is not as good as if you cleaned it up with a chisel and a knife. But that is enough to keep working on to eventually get your saddle notch. Okay, so we're out in the woods now, and I wanted to share something with you that maybe you don't see in too many videos. You often see the Pac-Man cut, the traditional one that I've shown in other videos, where you cut a large wedge in where you want the tree to fall, and then you cut back against the hinge, and away she goes. But this tree is hung up in an awful lot of stuff, and what we need to do is remove it vertically. Just actually snap it off, and we can carry it out. There's not too much weight in it for me to be able to twist it off and do what we do. But how do we do that, Joe? Well, we do it with a step cut. A step cut is a great way to also delimb a tree without damaging the bark and creating bark tear. So you can use it horizontally or vertically, like I'm about to do now. So what we're going to do is just saw in 50% of the way on one side, and then we're going to saw in 50% of the way on the other side. And as always, we make sure our tools are safe, that we have an exit, that once more there is nothing in the top of the tree that's going to come out and do it. And then all you got to simply do is rotate the tree, she snaps, and you can carry your firewood back to camp. So as a bonus feature, I wanted to show, because I get so many questions like, oh Joe, everyone says it can cut bone. It says on the package it can cut bone, but I've never seen it cut bone. Is it even possible that they can? Because I'm out doing a bit of hunting, or sometimes you want to cut bone up for projects to bring home. I found this one on a trail there only today, and we decided to drop it in the video. Will the teeth chip? And because I just want to carry one blade for when I'm out for cutting green wood, like so, done. Or if I want to cut dead wood or seasoned wood, I can, if I wish. But then, if I find something else a little bit tougher, like a piece of bone, and I just want to trim it to length, or I'm out hunting, I can also do that too. I've already cut these 2 pieces of bone, but I wanted to get down, to stop the Discord moderators, to the thickest piece of bone here and show you that it'll do that just fine. And there you go.